round 4. Let's try to make sure not to waste this opportunity. So, we are going to be talking about how to mod Ashes of Singularity. Now, in this video, we are going to be talking about how to change a weapon, how to change a unit's pathing when it's targeting another unit, and things like that. We will not be talking about how to add a unit into Ashes Singularity because that is a very fun and engaging process that is going to take a lot of time. Now, everything that I'm going to say here will also be present in the modding guide that I am making. It is not finished currently, and you will see some things like this. Microsoft Paint is a very fun thing to use, so keep this in mind. We will be talking about the steering module template, the weapon module template, things that are hard-coded, mislabeled stuff, and we will also be including some tutorials and other such things for stuff that's going to be put in here. Also, if you happen to discover something, I will just post it in the comments and I will add it to the guide at some point. I am paying attention. There's only 3 people that have commented. Sorry, there's only 3 comments and 2 of them are mine anyways. So keep this in mind. Not everything here is what I know perfectly, and a lot of this information that is relevant in the modding guide is basically because I was involved in the 3.0 balance patch. So, where everything that you are concerned about is, if you are on Steam, it will be under uh, Browse Local Files, go to Assets, and Game Core, and everything that you care about is going to be here. Minus one thing, the Flocker template. Currently, I don't know how this exactly works, so enjoy. I'm still going through the process of learning this one. However, for the rest of the stuff here, I do know how to use. So, uh, we'll start off with a few things that you need to understand. One is that the buff module template that is here is useless. Don't use it. The one here, use. Buff templates are going to be for your Dreadnought upgrades or auras that occur. For example, you see damage um, and stuff like this. Rate of fire is here, range. Some of these are for Dreadnoughts. One of them is actually for the battery that PhD gets. It's the upgraded sensor post. So keep that in mind. Research, this is for quantum passive upgrades that you get throughout the game. For example, you'll see the HP uh, and weapon damage. You will see, um, yes, you will see how much it increases in cost and how it buffs. For example, if we were to look here, unit weapon damage is buffed by 12.5% every time you get the upgrade. This is a number you can change, so enjoy. It is worth noting that the only one that is not used for pH is not used for substrate is going to be the metal and the data. The data is short for radioactives. I don't know why they went with this, but that is the best way to describe that. Next, we are going to be going into missile locations. This will be relevant when we're talking about the weapon module template. Uh, in short, I'm going to list what matters and what doesn't matter. Anything for the Agamemnon does not matter. The Artemis does not matter. The artillery does not matter. Atlas does matter. Roger doesn't matter. Blossom does not matter. Centaur is ignored. Brute Barrel, that's not used, so it doesn't matter. If it's something that's listed once, like for example the cheap anti-air and the Dominator, ignore them. The Falcon does not matter. The Fury does not matter. The gun turret does not matter. The Hades does not matter. Strat bomber does not matter. Heavy annihilator does matter, as well as the hyena barrel ray. These effectively give a unit 4 times the damage, so keep that in mind. Also, for these weapons, it will not display their DPS correctly. So if a unit, if a unit does matter in this list, its DPS will almost certainly not be used correctly. MRAMs do not matter. Nova Towers do not matter. Prometheuses do not matter. Rampagers do not matter. Skirmishers don't matter. Skyenders don't matter. Smarties don't matter. Nullify does not matter. Starburst doesn't matter. And Zeus does not matter. The Executor also does not matter. So this will make more sense as to why I'm saying it does matter. Next is squadrons. You're going to not really care about them. Weapon visuals. This includes things, if I recall correctly, just what something looks like. I believe the range indicator is also in here. If it isn't, I'll find out where that's stored. So, yay. I don't think it's there. Unit templates. This affects the base unit itself, not the weapons nor the steering. Um, so we'll start off with unit templates. So in here, you will see every unit that's listed properly. Next, you'll see the icon indexed, which does not matter. These columns right here don't really matter. They're just for internal purposes. Flocker template doesn't. This is going to be relevant to something that I need to learn. Formation template, this also matters, but it's something that I also need to learn. These are both cited in the Flocker template file. Default child formation template. This is also in the what's it called? Also in the Flocker template as well. Child formation. I don't know what this is really for. I haven't played with it. So child formation, we're going to ignore that. This is all stuff that's relevant to the Flocker template. So we're going to move to. Oh, that's where that's defined. Okay. So this will be the head unit of an army if it's present. So, spawn count. This affects how many units spawn initially. It is worth noting that for drones, this is important because they regenerate up to their cap. For example, you can have up to 64 drones. For anything that isn't drones, however, I will recommend against going above 5 because what will happen is the unit will not display properly. It won't be able to shoot other units, and it will be commandable, but it won't be shown. Max shown. This is the amount, the size of the army that the unit can use. Leave this at 128. There is a reason for that. I have not figured out that reason. So, I believe this is another thing that affects unit that affects Flocker tempo as well. Okay, and here are the flags for this classifies what the unit is. So, for example, if Tier 1 is going to be frigates. Tier 0 is drones. Tier 2 is cruisers. Tier 3 are dreadnoughts. Tier 4 are going to be juggernauts. And Tier A will be air. So keep that in mind. Prerequisites are required stuff that needs to be built before a unit can be queued. The can capture is set to either 1 or 0. This is primarily for the flocker templates that the army knows what units can and cannot capture. The max HP of a unit is for the individual unit, not the squad. It is worth noting that the spawn count does not matter at this point. It's just the squad size. What this everything from this point forward will affect is the individual unit. So, max HP, for example, this is the maximum HP that a unit will have. This is the base HP, and this is something that I will refer to at a later time. Next is max energy. This is how much a unit can store. Energy per second is the regen rate of energy. Armor, it goes from 1 to 99. One armor is equal to 5% damage reduction for any weapon that does not have armor piercing that equals its armor or greater. So if you have a weapon that has 55 armor and you have a weapon that has 56 armor pierce, it ignores the armor. Or even if it has 55, it will ignore it. I would recommend not going above 20 for armor because that's when you get into funky numbers. Next is heal rate. This is how fast the HP regenerates. Max shields. This is how much shields that unit has. And shield regenerate is how fast the unit regenerates its shields. It is worth noting, this is where I'm going to refer to both of these as base. The base HP is something that is used to calculate how much experience a Dreadnought or Juggernaut gets when a unit dies. Regardless of how the unit dies, a Dreadnought will receive experience that is equal to the max shields, the base max shields, and the base max HP. So keep this in mind when you're doing this. So keep that in mind. Sight radius is how far a unit can see. Radar radius is how far radar goes out to. The radar overlay, I should say. The cost of metal is how much it'll cost is how much the unit costs in total. Cost data, this is radioactives cost. Cost of energy, this is for primarily drones, but this affects how fast drones can spawn, if I recall correctly. Logistics, this affects the entire squad now. It is worth, for example, archers come in squads of 2 but cost 7 logistics. So if you have 2 level 1 squads of 1 archer, it will cost you 14 logistics, whereas if you have a single squad of 2 archers, it will cost you 7. Keep this in mind when balancing out squads. Construction time, this is how long it takes for a unit to be built. And anything after this point, don't touch. A few rules, by the way, when it comes to spawn count. Do not go above 5. Do not give it to anything that isn't frigates or drones. You will run into problems where units get stuck. The bigger the unit, the higher the chance of a unit getting stuck. So, enjoy. Also, everything here is properly labeled. This is one of the CSV files that are properly labeled. You'll find a few that are not. So, unit templates. Everything that I've said about unit templates applies to building templates. Building upgrades, this affects what buildings upgrade into. And as you can see, so keep this in mind. Also, there is a quanta cost. This affects how much something costs. So keep that in mind. Grid size. I forgot to mention this. This affects how many squares, building spots that a building occupies. 1 is going to be a 1 by 1. 2 means 2 by 2. 3 means 3 by 3, if I recall correctly. Yes. Enjoy. Also, there are units that are marked as bench. This is primarily for the bench test. So keep that in mind. Anything that you touch in here will also affect the bench test. So, next, we are going to go into how to build a unit. We're going to be using the archer. Now, in here, this is before we touch the steering module template, the steering module template and the weapon module template. So in here, this is the steering module template. This is the primary weapon of the unit. This weapon does no damage, by the way. And I'll explain what I mean by primary weapon. This is the actual weapon that the archer has. If you are curious as to what a unit uses, this is the quickest way to figure out what it uses. So keep that in mind. By the way, these commas here do matter. This is actually a CSV file that you can open in Notepad with no problem. So enjoy. Okay. This is also true of the building module template. If we were to go here, for example, you'll see capturable. No, template. You'll see all fun stuff in here. So enjoy. So now we're going to go into a few things. We have the resource module template. This affects all of the quantum abilities and amplifiers and extractors, as well as harvesters and refineries. Anything that affects resource gain, it's in here. Enjoy. Um, so keep that in mind. For example, you will see SS radioactive deposit is set to 1.75 data per second. It is worth noting that capturable radioactive deposit is 0.25 and the extractor is at 2. It is worth noting that these two add to each other. So keep that in mind. Okay. Also, you'll see things like overcharge in here that it will show you what it generates. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go on to steering module tempos. Also, I highly recommend that you use CSVED. For these files, do not use Microsoft Excel because it will save it as an XSML, I think. I don't remember the file template in particular, but these need to be specifically saved as a CSV file. The reason is that the game only recognizes CSV files; it does not recognize any other file format. So, CSVED, by the way, is a free program, and I highly recommend that you use it. So, this affects. So this is going to be the primary weapon. This weapon here primarily targets units, drags a unit to a targetable unit. Basically, this affects what the unit will focus on first and what it will point at first and how it will do its job. So some of these are not clearly labeled. For example, I will save you the trouble of finding the Fury's targeting. This is the Fury targeting module. Keep that in mind. um, so you're going to find stuff like this. So we're going to be talking about how this file works. So here we have rate of fire shots per volley. Keep this at the numbers that they have put here. There is a good reason for it. Duration and intervals also keep it at 0. Tier 0, this affects drones. Tier 1 is frigates. Tier 2 is cruisers. 3 is dreads. 4 is jugs. Air is air. Buildings are buildings. This is the smart targeting that is in the game. Now, keep in mind, if one of these columns is at 0, that means that a unit cannot see that specific unit. For example, if I were to set, let's say the Air Marauder. No, Air Marauder. If I were to set all these to 0, effectively all I could give it is move orders. And while the weapon will still shoot the enemy units, it will not recognize an attack order. It will not attempt to maintain a range. It will just simply circle around an area until until the weapon kills everything, and it will stay there. Keep that in mind. By the way, 0 means it cannot see, 5 means absolute lowest priority, 1 is absolute highest. Now we're going to be moving on to the important part. Anything from here to here is you need to ignore. So 24 to 27, ignore. 28, I'll quickly explain this. This is something that you need to set to 0. Don't set it to anything else. Aggressively does not matter in the way that you think it does. Yes, and I need to learn this one. However, we're going to be moving to the important numbers. You have the min firing range, the max firing range, the tracking distance, and the default leash. Now, in the guide that I have made, I gave you this wonderful picture. So, this is 0. This is the unit that we are targeting in question. The min range is always when we set, never set it to 0. The max range is here. This is it is worth noting that the minimum range and the maximum range should at least include the minimum range that a weapon can shoot, the minimum range that a unit needs to be far away from a unit to shoot its weapon, and the max range should be the absolute maximum range of the weapon. The tracking range is how far the unit can see another target, and it is worth noting that if it can see a unit, it will go to a unit. Finally, we have default. Now, they use the term default leash. That's incorrect. These are all points. So, back to this wonderful picture that I made in about 5 seconds. So the minimum range is the absolute closest that unit will get to the targetable unit in question. The maximum range again is that. The default point, if it is not set to 0, matters. This is if a unit is here and we're targeting this unit here. Your unit will move to the point always. Now, it is worth noting this is the ideal happy number that is always attempting to achieve. It is best to keep the minimum and maximum range as close to the default point as possible. This helps the unit maintain its default point if it needs one. Do not give default points to units that are artillery or require micromanaging because this screws them up royally and makes them unmicroable. For example, if you were to give the Kronos a default range of 600, instead of staying away from an enemy unit, it will get as close. It will get to the range of 600. Some people had fun while that was a feature in a certain beta build that I might have been responsible for. Enjoy. So, it was not fun. So, keep in mind the default point does matter. Do not set it anywhere above max or tracking range because what will happen is unit sees targetable unit. It's here. Goes here. It will stop when it hits the default point and then it will slowly coast in and then kill the unit. So you either have it on and it's between min and max range, or you have it off. Do not set it anywhere else. And do not set it anywhere over here because that also does matter. So keep that in mind. I haven't seen what aggressive leash does. I have very rarely seen a unit use it, so it's something that I would have to look at specifically. Okay. Next, we are going to be going on to the weapon module template. Now, everything in here does matter for the weapon. So everything from here over doesn't matter for now, but everything here is properly labeled. It is worth noting, however, that orbital abilities are also listed here, but they do not always go by their current name. For example, if you're thinking of finding Nanite Assassinate, it is not listed in here, and I'm using Nanite for that reason. It is referred to by its old name as Kill. So you're going to find things like this. Just something to keep in mind. So we are going to go back to this is targeting. This affects whether a weapon can target something or not. So we're going to be going through this. Rate of fire is how fast a unit shoots. Sorry, how long? Not how fast. Sorry, it's how long the reload is in seconds. The shots per volley is the attack count, and the duration or interpulse is how long it takes for each individual shot of it. Sorry, each individual attack to be emptied, or how long a laser lasts. So, for example, we're going to use the where is it? The Apollo autocannon. So it has 6 attacks, it has a rate of fire, it has a reload of 6.5, and it has an interpulse of 0.04. So what will happen is that it will fire the first shot after that, after the attack begins. So the next shot will be fired 0.04 seconds after that. ignore that. That was probably for another video or another attempt. And the next shot will follow. This is how long it will take for it to empty the clip, and it will take 0.2 seconds to empty the clip. So keep that in mind. That's how this is calculated. For lasers and not guns, this is the damage per second that a laser, the damage per impact and the duration does matter because it is laser delivered damage will always equal um, duration times damage per impact. So keep that in mind. This stuff is somewhat um, mismanaged. It is worth noting that these two are the ones that you're mostly going to care about. Don't Twitch. Don't use these for now. Minimum firing range. This should all be self-explanatory. The specific magic numbers. Every time this column comes up, I can tell you that I have no idea what it does, because it affects each individual weapon differently. So enjoy. Next, we're going to go on to accuracy. I'll get to AoE in a second. Accuracy is the chance that a weapon will hit a target. For fun, if you want to calculate how many, the chances of the entire shot landing on a target, um, you will do the amount of attacks. So let's say 6. It has a base accuracy of 6.5, and we want to say 6 attacks. The chances of all 6 shots landing is at 7.5%. So keep that in mind. If you want to find out if all of the shots are going to miss, it is 1 minus 0.65 to the power of, so that will be 0.35 to the power of 6, and it's 0.1%. Well, 0.183. So keep that in mind. You might see a number that's fairly high. It really isn't. It does not translate. The more attacks that you give this, the worse off the accuracy looks like it's going to be. Same for this. It is, however, worth noting that if you give a weapon AoE, it completely voids the accuracy over here. Just be aware of that. AoE is measured in meters, so for example, if a weapon has 100 range, that's how big, that would be the radius of this weapon. Sorry, it's diameter, not radius. So 125 is actually fairly big. Next, we are going to be talking about, actually back to AoE for a second. Certain weapons cannot receive AoE for whatever reason. This will be the Discouraging Streamer that is on the Avenger, and the Plasma Bombard that is on the Punisher. I know this because of testing in the 3.0 balance patch. We were testing something out that basically told us that. So keep that in mind. AP, I forgot to mention. 1 armor and 1 AP equals 0 damage reduction. 1 AP ignores 1 damage reduction regardless of how much damage reduction there is. Just keep that in mind. Units usually have between 1 and 20 armor, so keep that in mind. It is worth noting that if a unit has 99 AP, it does not do 99 times the damage. It does not get a damage boost. It just simply ignores damage. It just simply ignores armor. So keep that in mind. Projectile speed is how fast a projectile will go from weapon to receiver, which could be anything. It is worth noting that for lasers this doesn't really matter, but for whatchamacallit. But for projectile weapons, this does matter. If you're looking at something like the Scourging Streamers on the Avenger, it's probably best to give them a very high projectile speed because that matters. Also, another thing that I forgot to mention over in shots per volley. It is worth noting that if a unit attacks another unit, it will keep firing its shots until it empties its clip. Keep this in mind because what will happen is if you give something like the Avenger Discouraging Streamers 36 attacks and it only shoots at one frigate, it will unload all of those shots at anything within range and it will ignore the targeting that is listed here. And it will also ignore the range. The tracking range is to counter the range part of the problem, just set the tracking range to the same to be the max range. That is the easiest fix that you can do. For the targeting part, I don't really know what to tell you. Unfortunately, that's just a feature. Also, the targeting here are suggestions sometimes. Just because a weapon cannot target air does not mean that it will attempt to shoot air units. I have seen artillery posts shoot fighters and are actually extremely effective at it. They are better flak than the flak turrets themselves. So enjoy. I don't know what triggers that bug in particular, but I do know it does happen, and it is partially due to pitch. So keep that in mind. Um, so keep in mind for features like that. Also, the pitch here does matter because certain weapons need because it was noted that lasers were struggling to shoot anything that was not on the same altitude, that was on the same level as itself. So keep that in mind. Damage per impact. So this is the damage per attack that occurs, or damage per second if it's a laser. Keep that in mind. Scanning is uh, if a weapon bounces back, it does a 360 on its axis, or if it goes back and forth. You'll notice this on the Savager or the Retributor extremely well, or actually any of the Dreads. So this defines the weapon type. Another magic number. I don't know what this does for every single weapon, and I haven't even done it for a single one. Required energy. This is the amount of energy it costs to fire the weapon in full. So, for example, on the Avenger, it has 36 shots. It is not 3 energy per attack. It is 3 energy for the full salvo. Keep that in mind. Also, required energy or quanta does. This also affects the quanta cost for abilities. It is worth noting, however, that required energy it does not work on the Zeus's primary weapon for some reason. Additional quanta this affects quantum abilities as they scale up. Required flags, this is the requirements for something that needs to be built. Also, shield damage is listed here. It is for 1 unit only, and that is the Nova Tower. One other thing to note about the Nova Tower is that its weapon does not scale at all. The HP of the turret does, however. So, keep that in mind. I believe that's everything that needs to be covered. Oh, also, um, if I have missed something that is in the guide, please post it as a comment. There are only 3 comments on this, but it's extremely important to have all the information combined. If you discover stuff, please post it in the comments. I will add it to the guide. Oh, I forgot to mention there's stuff that is hard coded. So movement. Yes, I forgot to mention this. Okay, so the term rate that is present on every single unit in the game is hard coded. There is a reason for this, and that is basically because if you set it too high, what will happen is that a unit, instead of turning to a target, will instead flip over and turtle, and then flip back over. It is hilarious if it happens once, but I don't think it looks professional if it keeps occurring. So when you're balancing unit movement speed, keep that in mind. Higher speed does not means worse turn rate effectively. In the useful links, I will be listing certain stuff that can be easily downloaded, that can be used for testing. That's the wrong file. Um, I will also have a link for two scenarios. This will be the test dreadnoughts and the test point defense. These are primarily to help you do one-on-one testing. It is worth noting that for the test point defense, it is entirely you can only use one turret for player. You can only use turrets for player one. Player two can only use units. That is how it's coded. Unfortunately, it would have been nice for both of them to be done that way. So, so I'll get you those. It is worth noting that it is highly recommended that you use Notepad++ because it really helps things out. This file will be annotated for people, um, and I'll have a tutorial on how to use both of these. It's not very hard. So, hopefully I'll get that all done by next week. I hope